back here for the post-mortem after Spurs got absolutely humbled at Craven Cottage yesterday. 3-0. We're going to obviously start off with the match review, going to player ratings, 5 takeaways and reacts as well. I'm not sure how much reacts there is to do, but we'll start off with the match review. Obviously, it was an absolutely shambolic performance yesterday, and I felt like, you know, I don't think Ange could have done much more in terms of the starting lineup he chose. I don't think anyone would have chosen a different starting lineup at the time. And I felt like in the first 10, 15 minutes, that just really set the tone of the way that game was going to go.
Yeah, Fulham obviously come into this game high in confidence. They got quite a good recent home record as well. And I don't know what it was about those opening exchanges, but Fulham were just getting into our penalty area time and time again. It seemed as though we seemed to turn up and think we didn't have to do our proper defensive duties and just allow Fulham to do what they wanted on the ball without putting pressure on them. And obviously they could have easily been a goal or two up in those opening minutes if it wasn't for, actually, I thought, some really great defending from Romero, Dragoshin and Vicario. I think those three pretty much kept the score at 0-0 in those opening exchanges, and Fulham were flying forward. We couldn't get anywhere near their the fullbacks, Robinson and Castagna, who were just getting in all sorts of positions. Pereira was buzzing around the central area without anyone picking him up. And it took Tottenham a good 20 minutes to kind of get a foothold in that game, and it was pretty much all Fulham in those opening moments. And I can't really put my finger on why we started so sluggishly, given the fact that last week, you know, we had such a great result. We had a whole week to prepare for this game. We only had really one player missing from the lineup of last week, and that was Van de Ven. And we came out in such a sluggish manner. That must have been absolutely infuriated Ange that we didn't start on the front foot looking to put pressure on Fulham. And I don't know if it was complacency, arrogance, or just Fulham came in it with more energy, but we started that game very sloppily. Sarr was giving the ball away constantly. We couldn't really get any sort of possession at all. It was just kind of, we're getting the ball, giving it away, allowing Fulham to transition on us. And it was very, very easy for Fulham. I was astounded by how easy it was for Fulham to continually get into our penalty area. Not even just our final third, but in the box every time. And it took a number of last-ditch blocks from Romero and Dragoshin to prevent the score, us going down early. Yeah, absolutely. And I felt like in those first 15 minutes, we conceded more chances, more clear-cut chances in those opening 10, 15 minutes than we did in the Villa game and Crystal Palace game combined. It's an absolute joke. And I was saying to my uncle who I was watching it with, and I was saying it just felt like Spurs had just turned up and expected the win, after the good run that we've been on against Crystal Palace and against Aston Villa. Just turning up expecting to win. And I don't feel like I don't know if it was effort levels or I think it was just complacency going into this game, and it's not good enough. We've heard Ange talk about that kind of thing before, and I think it's crept in again in this game against Fulham. But having said that, after we did ride that wave of the first 20 minutes, we didn't concede the goal. And I felt we started to come into the game. We started to get a few chances. Sonny was getting a chance. Maddison was getting chances. And when Fulham did score, I really did feel like it was against the run of play. And at that point, we were like creeping into the game. But then after Fulham scored, it was literally just one-way traffic up until probably the final 10, 20 minutes. Yeah, a little bit of credit goes to the team to kind of find a solution around how Fulham were playing in the first half, and we did create some really presentable chances. Brennan Johnson had one which was a really poor effort, but was really well worked. Actually, I felt in that first half, as much as Fulham, I felt like the pattern of the first half was Fulham were continually winning the ball in the middle third of the pitch and transitioning on us. But when we did get, when Fulham were trying to play out the back, I thought we were continually winning the ball off them in their third. And the frustrating thing was, I actually thought our pressing in that period of the game was actually quite impressive. We were winning the ball many, many times. The problem was we didn't take advantage of those moments when we got into the final third and we were able to win the ball off them. We had a number of high regains in that first half, especially for the likes of Kulusevski. I remember was winning the ball a number of times. And he was doing some really good work there. But when it got to being decisive, we weren't on the mark. And also we had, as you say, Sonny had a good chance, which would have been a very, very good finish if he scores it, but just over the bar. Maddison, again, that came from a high regain. Udogie on the left cuts it back for Maddison. He actually does really well to maneuver the shot, but it just drags an inch wide, an inch to the right. And obviously, it's a goal because Leno was caught flat-footed. So he definitely had opportunities in that first half to take the lead. And as you say, the goal did come against run of play, but the goal was, again, a consequence of Spurs giving the ball away in the middle of the park. Robinson can't get near him. And to be fair to Robinson, it's a fantastic ball. He plays it very early for Muniz. He peels away from Dragoshin, one touch and bam, into the corner. It is a good goal, but again, it's from a transition from a bit of sloppy play. The frustrating thing was it was just before half-time, probably in one of Tottenham's best moments in the game, and it was probably really deflating having worked our way back in the game. That was when we conceded, and it looked as though we took that momentum into half-time, into the second half.
Yeah, but back on that ball from Anthony Robinson was one of the best balls I've seen in a long time. It was an unbelievable pass, wasn't it?
Since Saar last week.
Since Saar last week. I think it was even better than that, to be honest. So? Yeah, I think it was unbelievable the way he played that. And
I don't think it was.
Maybe not, look, but I think they're both unbelievable passes. Let's just say that. And I think, even with the pass, Dragoshin's got to be following his man, tracking that man at the back post. And I felt like Dragoshin was at fault for the goal. But yeah, I think you're 100% right. We took that momentum from the goal that we conceded into that second half. And everyone's thinking at half-time, all right, second half Tottenham are going to show in this second half. We're going to have a much better performance in the second half. And it was just anything but that. We were abject. We were standoffish. We were open. We were so easy to play against. And we got exactly what we deserved. That second goal that we conceded was such poor defending all round. I mean, Iwobi literally just waltzes past Udogie. I don't understand what Udogie's doing there. He's literally just standing there looking around, not even trying to put a foot in. Iwobi literally just walks past him. Like, what is he doing?
Yeah, unacceptable. Obviously, Castagna finds himself in all sorts of space down the right-hand side as well. We continually struggle to track him, to track the fullbacks. I think both fullbacks were just causing us so much havoc. I didn't even think it was so much. I mean, Willian and Iwobi also played very well, but when it got to those players getting into positions to get the pullbacks, it was always those fullbacks continually there, just non-stop running. And at that point, you got to say maybe our wingers have some culpability there. Are they not tracking their runners? Are they not helping out the defence enough? Are they not getting back in position? Because time and time again, their fullbacks found themselves in really good positions, and obviously they both got assists on the day. I have to say, with the second goal, no, obviously the defending is horrific. We were all over the place. Is there a bit of luck there with the finish? I think it comes off his knee. Does he mean it to kind of finish that way? Probably not, I would say. From Fulham's point, from our point of view, from Tottenham's point of view, there was probably a slight bit of luck with the goal. But when they're opening us up like they were, and when they're finding it again so easy, you can't rely on a last-ditch block like we were in the first half every time. And it seemed as though that's what we were trying to do. And obviously we found ourselves 2-0 down. And I have to say, if the defending for the second goal was bad, the third goal was even worse.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst defended set pieces I've ever seen.
Yeah.
We allow Calvin Bassey to take the ball down from a corner, turn, and have a shot and without getting the block on. I mean, Romero's closest to him, and I'm sorry, he has to get tighter, way tighter. He has to be more aggressive. He cannot allow Bassey from that position to get a shot off. Or when Bassey's got his back to goal, Bassey has to take a touch to the left, swivel and shoot, right? And
all the time in the world. All the time in the world.
Romero allows him to do it. And obviously, I don't blame Vicario too much. I think he saves it onto the post. And Dragoshin doesn't react quick enough. He allows Muniz to get the touch on it, and it just trickles into the back of the net. It's such a terribly defended goal from Tottenham. And I have to say, set pieces, it's something that Andrew's been questioned on. And he's continually, I think Barnaby made this point yesterday, he's continually batted away suggestions about getting a set piece coach because he said he doesn't feel like it's necessary. Well, it's hard to justify that when we're defending from set pieces in the way we are, in the manner we are, because it seems to be every week there's an opportunity for the opposition to get a joy from set pieces.
Yeah, and it's an area that I highlighted in the preview, wasn't it? We spoke about it, saying that Fulham haven't exactly been strong from set pieces this season, but it's an area that we've been very weak for a while now, this season particularly. And as much as I was worried about set pieces coming into it, I never thought we'd concede a set piece that easily and that kind of sluggishly. It was a terrible goal to concede. All three goals, I mean, I thought were terrible goals to concede, particularly the second and the third. And when you're conceding goals like that, when you're under the cosh of it of Craven Cottage, you just give yourself an impossible task to do. You know how good Fulham are at Craven Cottage. Whenever the good sides come there, they give them a tough game. And when you're just giving goals away like that, I mean, you just leave yourself with absolutely no chance.
And it was luck. It was only a bit of luck that prevented it from being 4-0 because Paolini obviously has a shot from another set piece. Luckily for us, it deflects in off Jimenez, who was offside. But if he wasn't there, you know, that might have squirmed past Vicario. That might have been 4-0 anyway. So at that point, that, you know, if it wasn't embarrassing enough, 4-0 would have been an absolute travesty. But what I would say is at 3-0, obviously, I do think Ange should have realised things were happening quicker than he did, and he obviously waited till it was 3-0. When did we make those subs? It was on like 60 minutes or so, 65 minutes.
Yeah,
we made those.
Richarlison didn't come on till about 10 minutes to go.
But what I would say is it was 66 minutes they made the subs. Obviously, we were 3-0 down. The game was over. What I would say about those subs is. They did actually affect the game positively in a sense. Yes, the game was over, so you could argue Fulham took their foot off the gas. But what I would say is, after those subs came on, with Bentancur, Højbjerg and Werner, we actually did create a few openings all of a sudden. Obviously, Brennan Johnson had a terrible miss from inside the 6-yard box. And then Brennan Johnson then sets up Werner, who bloody missed one of the misses of the season. I'm sorry. It's a terrible, terrible miss. And if one of those goes in, with 25 minutes to go or 20 minutes to go, you never know what can happen, especially with the way we had changed our play with those subs, and maybe we'd built a bit of momentum. If we get a goal, maybe we get back in the game. But unfortunately, on this occasion, really terrible finishing cost us. We didn't take advantage of that little moment we had. I think Bentancur as well had a good effort from the edge of the area, which was saved by Leno. So we had a few openings in that little period, didn't take advantage of it, and then once that period goes, it kind of just dwindled away the game. And if anything, Fulham looked like they could probably get a one or two more on the counter attack late in the game. They didn't even need a Adama Traore to come on. They were that comfortable, and we ended up succumbing. I think the game petered out. We ended up succumbing to a 3-0 win. What was really disappointing, I felt like with like 10 minutes to go or so, the players felt like they just wanted this game to be done. They didn't want. They weren't really pushing that much to get back in the game. I got the feeling that apart from maybe Richarlison, who had a couple of efforts, like I got the feeling that these players were just counting the minutes down to get this game over and done with and admitted defeat, which is really disappointing to see. And it's also one of the first times I've seen it. Even when we were 4-0 down against Brighton, we put a little comeback together and tried to get back in the game. And this is also one of the first times this season where I felt like we just looked like a completely average team. We looked completely easy to play against. It seemed as though Fulham found it very, very easy to combat what we were trying to do. And that was probably the most concerning thing, considering you can't really have too many excuses from a team selection point of view as to why it felt like that. As well. On top of that, you have options off the bench. You had good options off the bench as well. So you can't say, we didn't have the squad options, because we did. So there weren't really any excuses to perform in the way we did, in the manner that we did. And that was the most concerning thing. And in such a big game, to help build momentum off last week and try and cement that place in the top four, try and put pressure on Villa, who are playing in 20 minutes' time. We really had a good opportunity to do that, and we just completely fell flat on our faces. And I can't really put my finger on why it was that bad. I understand sometimes you can be second best on the day and it can be a close game and you can lose. But to be as bad as we were is really concerning, I have to say. And obviously, the bad thing is we got 2 weeks to now mull over this result with the international break, and it's the worst thing to have 2 weeks to think about it. And hopefully, we come back firing against Luton and put this result to bed. But we've had with a lot of our results this season, there's always been excuses around those results, but for this game, those excuses kind of dried up. Yeah, this is the first time. Like I said in the build up to the game, right? There is no excuse not to go into this game and play well and get a result against this Fulham side, albeit however good they've been at home. Our excuses have completely gone now. Our team is back, albeit Van de Ven was out, but still that is no excuse to have one player out and to
performance like that, where every single player on the pitch, you can't count one player that had a good performance yesterday. There is no excuses to put in a performance like that. And you're looking at a lot of fans trying to lay into Ange in terms of the tactics, saying he's naive and all this kind of stuff. I'm looking at the players on the pitch. I can't see one player that tried to stand up for the team yesterday. And you're looking at how our midfield, when Fulham were on the ball, was completely non-existent. Where was Bissouma? Where was Sarr? Where was Maddison for the majority of that time whenever Fulham were attacking? You could drive like a bloody steam train through that midfield and no one would get hurt.
Pereira had the freedom of Craven Cottage.
The complete freedom. Every time he was on the ball, he could stretch out like that, and he wouldn't touch a player. That's how much space he had on him every single time he had the ball.
And that was something I highlighted in the preview. Pereira is very good in transitions. When he gets in those little pockets, he's hard to pick up, and he can really and he's very direct in those transitions as well. He gets the ball very quickly out wide and he can cause problems, and Bassoum was nowhere to be seen. Absolutely nowhere to be seen. He had a really, really bad game. And I'd say Sarr as well. For the moments we were in a weird way, I thought the moments we were on top, he actually played well, but in that little period. But the moments when we were not good and we were under the cosh, he was just terrible. He was terrible. It was a really bad display. And it's no surprise that the first subs and Hughes, he took the whole midfield three off and just completely changed it. And we did improve after that. So I don't know what happened to the midfield on the yesterday. It's a midfield that's worked really well for us this season, but yesterday they were just all over the place.
And I don't think it was a case of like the midfield were dominated or Fulham, the way that they were playing, they overran our midfield or anything like that. I just feel like it was just a abject display. Every single one individually were just nowhere to be seen.
I have a slight disagreement with that. I thought João Palhinha was exceptional.
He was exceptional.
He was
exceptional, but it's still no
away from him.
It's still no excuse to the way that midfield played.
It's not an excuse. I'm just saying he was brilliant. If we came up against a Fulham team without him, I think it might be in a different game. I think he was that influential.
I disagree with that. Like, I don't think, even if João Palhinha, yes, he was incredible. He was probably the best player on the pitch on the day. Granted, I completely agree with that. But having said that, that still doesn't make an excuse for our midfield to have a complete no-show. Like every single time Fulham are on the ball, no one is close to anyone. Even when João Palhinha wasn't even in the play, our midfield were absent. Like they were nowhere to be seen, literally.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I thought we were horrific. I'm just pointing out, I don't think it was just a case of, I mean, it was a case of us not playing well, but I thought João Palhinha we couldn't get away from him. He was just absolutely everywhere. Every time we're getting into midfield, Fulham's half, he's just there. Doesn't matter who's on the ball, he's putting a tackle in. And obviously he did so well with those transitional moments as well. I thought he was just so great. But yeah, our midfield, there's no excuse to be as bad as they were. Absolutely not. And I thought Ange clearly saw that because he obviously took all three of them off and he clearly had seen enough. I would have hoped he would have changed it. For people who are saying he should have made changes at half time, what I would say is I kind of understand why he didn't, because in that period going into half time, we were the ones on top. It was just unfortunate Fulham obviously got the goal just before half time. And I think Andrew will probably look at it thinking, well, just before that goal, we were the ones in the ascendancy, so why would I change it? But obviously that momentum with the Fulham goal completely swung in their favour, and as we came out for the second half, we were all over the place, and that was completely unacceptable. But I don't think I criticise Ange for maybe at half time. I do think at 2-0, I don't know how quickly they made it 3 after 2. I'm trying to see. It was very quick. It was pretty quick, wasn't it? It was 49 then 60. Well, they got the other one on 61, so we had a good 12 minutes. You got
to make the change. You could tell as soon as that first half kicked off which way it was going to go. Spurs didn't come out for that second half whatsoever. Fulham started the second half as they started the first half, and changes needed to come a lot quicker than they came.
At 2-0, he's got to change it.
100%.
I think he's got to change it.
You saw as soon as Bentancur and Højbjerg came on, it did kind of stem the tide a little bit. You felt like we actually had a midfield presence after they came in, and I thought Bentancur, he probably looked his sharpest since he's come back from his injury, I thought.
Yeah, I think he'll be one of the few good things about the game was his little cameo. Again, I thought he had a good cameo last week against Villa, and I thought he followed up with a nice little cameo against Fulham yesterday. Looked a bit sharper, looked more confident as well. Højbjerg as well had a little decent cameo. So that was good, but obviously it was a bit too little too late when you're 3-0 down. Unless you're going to get a goal very quickly, it's going to be very difficult to get back in the game. And to be fair, we did have the chances to get back in the game. We just didn't take them, and that was really, really frustrating and disappointing. But
when you go 3-0 down away to Fulham, you leave yourself with way too much to do, regardless if you don't take your chances, and the few chances that we did have in the latter stages of that second half. You should never be going 3-0 down in a game against Fulham. It's not on, and it's not acceptable to go 3-0 down like that, with the way that we conceded the goals, with the way each and every individual was playing on the pitch. Vicario was our man of the match yesterday, and he conceded 3 goals yesterday. If it wasn't for Vicario and Romero, we probably would have lost 4-5-0 yesterday.
Yeah, can't disagree with that. That's the reality. And after all the good, obviously we have to wait for Villa's result. We have to see if they take advantage of it later. But after all the good, all the goodwill we had last week, and everyone, very, very excited about the end of the last 10 games of the season, and really taking charge of this top 4 race. This was a real slap in the face, and maybe, I don't know. I think it remains to be seen whether this was a reality check or whether it was just a really bad day at the office or humbling. But it was horrific, and we've got to make sure that this is just a one-off rather than something we see more often.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what this midfield has usually provided week in, week out in the Premier League, when you look at the characteristics that this team usually has and what they have had for the most part of the season, it does seem like it was a one-off. And I really hope that they don't let this fester within the group now, because, these Kings can go either one way or the other. Either you respond with a really good performance like we have done in the past, or you let this fester and this becomes a bit of a theme. And it hasn't become a theme so far this season. So at this moment in time, I will say it's just a one-off. But you've seen this kind of thing with Tottenham before, haven't you? Where a performance like that comes in and then it kind of like spirals from there.
Yeah, Ange was fairly bullish after the game about this not being something that this team has shown too often this season. He was asked whether this result was, one step forward from last week and then 1 step back this week. And he said it was more like 4 steps forward and 1 step back, considering how we've played this season. And I understand that assessment as well. I do wonder what his team selection will look like after the international break. Obviously, it's going to be, you have to consider what injuries we get and all that kind of stuff. But let's say everyone's fit. I do wonder, does he consider changing it up, or will he just keep it the same and say, look, it was a one-off game and I'm going to trust these players to put it right? For
me, I think Bentancur needs to come in the 6th in a couple of weeks' time. I don't know if he's going called up to Uruguay or not, but he's going to have 2 weeks now before the next game to get himself even more fit. Maybe it'll be good for us if he's not called up for Uruguay, so he'll have time on the training pitch with Ange just to keep his fitness levels up, get better and better and better. And I think that Bentancur, what we saw come on yesterday, was probably the fittest Bentancur we've seen. So with 2 weeks behind him till our next game, I fully expect him to be back to some really good levels, Bentancur. So I really want to see him start next game in the 6th.
Yeah. I'm going to leave. What would I want? I think obviously on form, although I thought Basuma had a good game against Villa, he was obviously terrible against Fulham. Bentancur's had a couple of really good cameos, but then before that, when we saw him in the 6th, he was struggling a bit. But hopefully he's maybe come over that situation, and maybe he's back to full fitness. So if all things being equal, I think that is one change I'll probably like to see, albeit. Again, when Ange changed it, he did put Bentancur in the 8 and he put Højbjerg in the 6. So I don't know if that's an indication of where he sees it at the moment. But I do think Ange will probably lean towards not massive changes, I reckon. I know he will be a disappointment. I think he'll want to let the players to put it right. And if obviously they put in a similar performance again, then I think massive changes will be had. But I think Ange will probably want to put a bit more trust and not just, make after. I know it was a really bad performance, and the temptation will be, you've got to change the whole 11. But I think Ange will be more calmer than that, in my opinion.
I think the only change I would make is Bentancur over Basuma. I think I would keep the majority of the players. I mean, when you're looking at it, who are you going to change? You can't change the fullbacks. The centre-back, if Van der Ven's fit, he'll play instead of Dragoshin. Apart from that, who are you going to change? I don't think you're going to want to take out Papsar. You're not going to take out Maddison. You don't want to take out Son. Brennan and Kulu, maybe Timo comes in. But, I mean, apart from that, who are you going to change? And I get that Timo and Brennan missed some really presentable chances yesterday, but I hate this kind of narrative where, you know, they're lambasting these two guys and singling out these two guys. And I get they missed big chances to get us back into the game, but every single player on the pitch was absolutely shocking yesterday. And you have to give, you have to call it as it is, right? No one played well. So if you're going to single those two out, you need to put the rest of the players in there with them. And I think it's unfair just to single out Brennan Johnson and Timo Werner. And at the end of the day, yeah, Brennan missed a big chance, but he's the one that laid that on a plate for Timo Werner. So he's got to get credit somewhere there as well.
I agree, and I think everyone's laying into them saying, you know, well, not everyone, but I've seen a lot of people laying into them saying, this shows, you know, they're never going to be good enough, all this kind of stuff. And that might be true, but I don't, you know, on this evidence, Sar's never going to be good enough. Basuma's never going to be good enough, you know. Maddison's never going to be good enough. Like, if you're going to base your opinion and your assessment just based on this game after they've been in good form recently, you know, those good moments don't show they will be good enough. But apparently the bad moments show they won't be good enough. And I don't like that analysis. And I think it's biased, and I think it comes from where people have come into it with certain opinions, like this player's no good, and every time they don't play well, they want to back up their opinion, they get loud, but when they score, they don't say, oh, I was wrong, actually he is good enough. But when they play badly, actually they like to use that as evidence to show how right they were. So I don't like that. And look, I'm not sitting here saying that Brennan Johnson and Werner are going to be the long-term solution to Spurs. I do think the jury's out on that, but I'm not going to lambast them just after one bad game when they've been in good form and say this is proof that they're not good enough, and if they're still here next season, then we're you know, there's big problems and all that kind of stuff. I think that's disingenuous. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And I thought Kulusevski as well had a really frustrating day. I mean, Kulusevski, for me, he just kept running into trouble time and time again, didn't he? He would beat a man and then just run into trouble. Can you name one player on that pitch that can come out, apart from maybe the substitutes that came on in the last stages, that can leave that pitch with their head held high, apart from Vicario?
I did think in the first half, Vicario, Romero and Dragoshin as a three were actually really good, apart from obviously we did concede the goal, but I thought those three did really well in the first half. I think Dragoshin was actually doing some really good stuff from corners. He was winning a lot of headers, and I actually thought, you know, I was saying it to Barnaby in the first half, I thought he was actually doing really well up against Muniz before the goal. I actually thought he was doing a really good job, and then obviously Muniz got his moment and he scored, and that all goes out the window. But I thought those three were doing a really good job. I don't think anyone really comes out of any credit at all in the second half, apart from maybe Bentancur. Apart from that, I don't think anyone comes out of any credit in the second half. But first half, I would say those three I thought did quite well.
I mean, I agree to an extent, but then I disagree in terms of how easy it was to get a clear-cut opportunity against us. I mean, they just seem to be in time and time again in those first 20 minutes.
I don't think that's Vicario, Romero and Dragoshin.
Not Vicario, but I think maybe Romero and Dragoshin. I mean, Dragoshin...
No, they kept getting out from the sides.
Dragoshin looked like it looked like it was his first game for Spurs. And I know it was, but when you look at Van de Ven in his first game for Spurs, it looked like he'd been there for years.
Yeah, I thought second half he wasn't as good. I would say, I just thought in the first half, I thought he was having I thought he began the game really well. I thought he was having a really good game next to Romero. And I thought them three were the only players in that first half who came out with a bit of credit. But second half, I don't have the same assessment. I don't think anyone came out with credit. I just thought in the first half, those three were pretty good. And if it wasn't for them, it probably would have been 3-0 at half time, I thought.
Yeah. In terms of Ange Postecoglou, a lot of people, you know, going in on Ange in terms of the tactics, playing the high line and the way we've been playing and, you know, relating it to this game. Do you feel like it was a tactical issue yesterday? Do you feel like it was a system issue? Because a lot of people were saying it was.
I think the system definitely got exposed for sure. I thought you could see down it was pretty obvious where the spaces are for Spurs to exploit, and that's in the wide areas. And they did that literally over and over again. They ruthlessly exposed that area of the pitch, and that's exactly what happens when you invert the fullback. So I do think the system contributed to the loss of the game. I thought Marco Silva outdid him tactically, 100%. That's not to say in the long term the system's a problem or anything like that, or that the system can't work. But sometimes you look, no system in world football, people don't realize sometimes, no system in world football is 100% foolproof. Every system has its vulnerabilities for any team. Every team has vulnerabilities. And sometimes they get exposed, especially when we're not fully acclimatized to it, especially in your first year. I keep going back to it, but look at the managers right now who are in the top 3 in the Premier League. In their first year, you know, they had big issues with their system and players fitting into it. But when given time, the players got up to speed with it, and the system then wasn't seen as an issue. But if you asked fans of those clubs back in, you know, when they started taking over, then maybe a lot of them would have said, "Oh, these managers are naive. These managers have tactical issues." No doubt about it. The system and Ange got not found out, but they got exposed, I would say is the right term, yesterday. For sure, they did. I don't think there's any because I don't think it was a issue. For me, I didn't see players not putting in 100%. I just thought players were lacking in intensity and they weren't doing the right things defensively, and we just kept getting caught out in our most vulnerable areas. That definitely kept happening. But I think in the long term we'll sort out those problems. But yesterday, definitely Marco Silva.
What excuse is there to lack intensity? Surely if you lack intensity, then maybe you're not putting 100% in. Otherwise, you would be in full intensity.
There are some games you lack intensity. It happens.
For what reason, though? Like, there's got to be a reason for it.
It's hard to put your finger on exactly why all the time. For example, that game where Man City played early in season against Villa, they completely lacked intensity in that game. It's hard to put your finger on why. You know, I'm sure Pep will dig deep into the reasons why, and he'll figure out why. But they did, and that's why. It doesn't mean Man City weren't putting in 100% that day, or there's a big problem. It just meant they lacked intensity. I think that's what happened yesterday with Spurs. We were just completely off it. We lacked intensity. It's hard to put your finger on exactly.
It's different. That game against that Villa game against Man City, it was completely different. Like, Aston Villa, they like pressed Man City into oblivion. They just couldn't get out their own half. Aston Villa were incredible that day, and yes, Fulham were very good yesterday.
Fulham had a really good day.
I'm saying Fulham did have a very good day yesterday, but it's not like they pressed us into oblivion and didn't let us do what. Like, if Spurs came out the traps and were fast and put in 100% and everything like that, I think, you know, we could have found solutions in that game. I do feel like there was a problem on that pitch with those players. It felt like they just came out there expecting to win the game and thought they'd already won the game after like a couple of good performances.
Yeah, maybe that was it. And that is and obviously that's not good enough going into that game. We have to stamp out that from happening, and I'm sure Ange will address that if that was the cause of it. But it's hard to put your finger on exactly, you know, only 24 hours later, why that was the issue. That could have been it. I'm sure Ange will try and figure that out. But I don't think just, you know, one bad game like that throws out the good work that he's done. So I think he'll try and rationalize it in his head. He'll try and sit with the players and he'll look over the game and he'll try and analyze why things went the way they did, but I don't think it's a symptomatic issue of something deeper, in my opinion, just yet. But if it carries on, then maybe you have a case. But right now, I'm not going that far.
I mean, if we go and drop points to Luton in a couple of weeks' time, and then that's when the alarm bells are going to really start ringing. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'm still very happy with Ange Postecoglou. I'm happy with the way this club is going. I'm happy with the direction we're going in. It's just yesterday was a massive kick in the teeth, and with all the Spurs fans coming into it, we just expected and deserved a lot more from that game that we didn't get. And, you know, after that Villa game, we all had our tails up, didn't we? Everyone had our tails up, from the players to the fans to everyone involved with Tottenham Hotspur. And to watch that is just, I don't even know where to go with that performance. It was just tragic from minute one, apart from a couple of moments here and there, all the way till the end of the game. And we need to pick ourselves up. We need to dust ourselves off, and we need to go again. It is unfortunate that we've got a international break, because you kind of just want a game straight away after that, don't you?
You want to put it to bed. You don't want it to linger in your mind. And look, it will. Maybe you could argue having the international break, just have it before that game. You could argue it gives that the players a bit of time to get away from what happened and try and put it to the back of their mind, and so we can, you know, move on from that in a different way. So I think it has its benefits in both ways, but I'm sure Ange, after the international break, will not let them forget what happened, and I'm sure he'll aim to put it right in the next one.
Yeah.
We've got some big look. Even though it was a bad defeat, we've still got some big games coming up. Let's hope Villa, West Ham could do us a favour now against Aston Villa. If Villa fail to win, this defeat won't hurt as badly.
Yeah, but if they do, then it just puts that 4-0 win last week completely in vain.
Correct.
But look, that is our match review for the game yesterday. 3-0 loss at Craven Cottage, a really hard one to take.